I think I didn't do anything wrong, just followed my heart and got in the wrong car at the wrong time. The airbags blew, the cops came, and my husband arrived, not to help me up, but to hand me a neat little envelope. I thought it was sympathy. It was a notice. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. I think I didn't do anything wrong, just followed my heart and tried to feel alive again. Leo had stopped noticing me long before the car crash or the envelope. I only wanted to feel seen, and Gareth saw me. At least that's what I told myself when it all started. Back then, I believed Leo should be grateful that I was still there at all. At home, everything felt dull. Same kitchen, same two-bedroom house, same questions about dinner and bills. Leo worked in IT for the city, steady and quiet, the kind of man who thought fixing routers was enough romance for one lifetime. I was 33, the office administrator at Sloan Packaging, and lately, everyone said I had potential. Gareth Sloan, our regional director, said I had leadership written all over me. He said I carried myself with a calm confidence. He said my husband probably didn't appreciate that kind of woman. I laughed the first time he said it, but it stuck. At first, I told Leo small lies. I said I needed to stay late to help with quarterly reports, even when the reports were already done. I said Gareth insisted we prepare early for audits. Leo only asked what time I'd be home. I said, "Don't wait up." He nodded, polite as always, and I called that indifference. Later, I would tell everyone he'd stopped caring about me long before I did anything wrong. When Gareth offered to drive me home after a late meeting, I agreed because it was raining and because I wanted to see what it felt like to have someone insist I shouldn't walk alone. It was harmless, I thought, until the next week, when I waited by his car again, even though the sky was clear. I told my sister Kira about it, half joking. She laughed and said I deserved some attention, that Leo was probably busy counting wires or watching tutorials on how to love a woman. When I told my mother, she sighed and said I should be careful not to scare Leo away with my ambition. That annoyed me more than it should have. Why was I always the one walking on eggshells? Why couldn't Leo just keep up? At work, Lydia, my friend from accounting, kept pushing the story of Gareth and me. She said everyone noticed the way he stood closer to me in meetings. I told her people were dramatic. Then I told Leo the same thing when he asked why Lydia had tagged me in a picture from a team night out that he didn't know about. I said he was monitoring me. He said he was just surprised I hadn't mentioned it. I told him that was exactly why I didn't, because everything I did became a problem. That weekend we went to dinner with his mother, Diana. She always had that look of suspicion, as if she could see through me. She asked about work. I said I loved it. She asked about Gareth. I said he respected me. Leo stayed quiet, which gave me the stage. I told them both that my boss appreciated initiative, unlike some people. Diana frowned. Leo stirred his coffee and said he was glad someone valued me. I felt insulted by his calm. I said he was being sarcastic. He said he wasn't. I told him that's exactly what sarcasm sounds like. At home, I accused him of trying to make me look foolish. He said he hadn't even raised his voice. I told him that was worse, that he used silence as punishment. He said I was imagining it. I said that word, imagining, over and over until he apologized just to end the argument. I counted that as a win. The following week, I told my parents that Leo was becoming difficult. My father said Leo seemed responsible. My mother said every marriage needed patience. I told them they had no idea what living with someone like him was like. They dropped it, and I took that as proof that I was right. At work, Gareth started inviting me to client lunches. He said he needed someone with empathy to handle the clients. I liked the way that sounded. During one lunch, he told me he'd once been married to a woman who made him feel invisible. I said I understood completely. He smiled and said, maybe we were both too understanding for our own good. When I came home late that night, Leo asked if I'd eaten. I said yes. He asked if I wanted to watch a movie. I said I was tired. Then I posted a story from the restaurant with the caption, "Working with the best team ever." It was petty, but I wanted him to see what he was missing. Later, when I sat with Kira for coffee, she told me I was glowing. She said Leo should be careful, or I'd realize I could do better. I said maybe it wasn't about better, maybe it was about different. She laughed and said different usually means better. By the end of that month, I had a new routine. Stay late, send a quick text, come home just before midnight, complain about office stress. Leo started to wait up again, but not to argue, just to ask if I needed tea, or if my back hurt from sitting too long. I told him not to act like a nurse. He said he was just being nice. I said he was suffocating me. One Friday, Gareth told me about a client mixer in another town. He said he'd handle the drive if I handled the details. I said sure. When I got home and told Leo, he only said to be careful. I said he didn't trust me. He said it wasn't about trust, just safety. I said he was ridiculous. He let it drop, and that silence made me furious. That night, I tried on a dress that I said was for work events. He looked at me for a long time and said I looked nice. I asked if that was all he had to say. He said yes. I said he was boring. He said I was beautiful, but tired. I turned off the light. The next day it rained. Gareth texted that he'd pick me up so I wouldn't ruin my shoes. I looked at Leo reading to Milo and said I had to leave early. He asked if I had my umbrella. I said I didn't need one. I watched his face as I grabbed the spare car key from the hook, though I didn't plan to use it. I just liked the idea of having an extra way home if I changed my mind. When Gareth's headlights appeared, I told myself I was just accepting a ride. I didn't realize, or maybe didn't care, that it was the start of everything falling apart. The rain hadn't stopped that week, and the air smelled like wet pavement when Leo suggested we skip dinner at his mother's house. I said no, because I wanted her to see how fine we were. I wanted her to stop looking at me like a problem she couldn't fix. So we went, even though I had already promised Gareth I'd help him prepare a presentation that same night. At Diana's house, the table was covered with the same old dishes: roast chicken, mashed potatoes, quiet judgment. Kira joined us too, uninvited, saying she wanted to support her sister. As soon as Leo tried to talk about Milo's school, Kira interrupted to ask about my big projects at work. I said Gareth trusted me with more than anyone else. Leo smiled politely, which annoyed me. He said he was happy for me. Kira rolled her eyes and said he sounded jealous. I laughed and agreed, though I knew he wasn't. I just wanted to see him react, but he didn't. When Diana asked if I was still working late, I said yes because leadership demanded sacrifices. She said it was good to be ambitious but dangerous to forget home life. I said some men can't handle strong women. Leo kept cutting his chicken, not saying a word. That silence made me louder. I told them I was tired of being treated like I should shrink myself. Kira clapped. My father-in-law would have called it putting on a show, but he wasn't there to see it. When we left, Leo thanked his mother for dinner, like nothing had happened. I told him he should defend me when people question my choices. He said no one had attacked me. I said silence was worse than attack. He looked tired. I told him to drop me at the office because Gareth wanted to review slides. He said it was almost 9. I said that's how dedication looks. He drove me there without arguing. At the office, Gareth was already waiting by the door with coffee. He said I handled myself well in front of my family, that I had backbone. I told him I didn't even say half of what I wanted. He laughed and said maybe I should. Then he said something about strong women needing to be appreciated properly. I didn't answer, but I didn't leave either. When I got home close to midnight, Leo was on the couch. I said I fell asleep at my desk. He said, okay, and that word felt like an insult. The next few days blurred together, meetings, messages, little jokes with Gareth that turned into longer looks. I told myself it was harmless. At lunch, Lydia teased that Gareth had a type. I said I wasn't anyone's type, I was married, She laughed and said being married never stopped attention. That made me blush, but I didn't stop the conversation. Friday came, and with it the company gala. I told Leo it was just work, no partners allowed. He believed me. Kira came over while I got ready and said she hadn't seen me this excited in years. I told her it was just professional pride. She asked if Gareth was single. I said divorced. She grinned. "Then what's stopping you from having some fun?" she said. I said, "I'm married." She said, "To a ghost." The gala lights were soft and warm, champagne glass in my hand, Gareth's hand at the small of my back as we greeted clients. Everyone kept saying we made a great team. I liked the sound of that word, team, because it gave everything a clean name. When someone asked where my husband was, I said he didn't like events. I saw Gareth smirk but say nothing. Later that night, in the parking lot, he offered me a ride home again. It was raining harder now. I hesitated for 1 second, then got in. The smell of leather and cologne filled the car. He talked about promotion possibilities, said he could see me running my own branch. I told him Leo thought I was too emotional for management. He said that made me more human. The flattery felt like music. As we drove, the road shimmered under the streetlights. Gareth talked about how lonely success can be. I said I understood. He said we shouldn't feel guilty for being alive. I laughed, said he was dramatic. He said maybe I needed someone dramatic. I told him to focus on the road. He looked at me when he said I deserved better. The car drifted for half a second, then jolted as tires lost grip. There was a sharp noise, the world twisting, airbag bloom, a white flash. My chest hit something hard. When the car stopped, all I could hear was the rain pounding on the windshield. Gareth cursed under his breath, checked his arm, and said it wasn't that bad. My ears rang. Outside, lights flickered. Someone had called the police. I grabbed my phone, tried to breathe. Gareth said we needed to agree on what happened before anyone arrived. He said it was after-hours work. I nodded. My hands were shaking. When the officer knocked on the window, Gareth said we were co-workers returning from a client dinner. The officer looked at both of us, then at the back seat where his briefcase lay open with company papers. I smiled like nothing was wrong. He asked if we'd been drinking. Gareth said 1 glass each. I said I had juice. My voice sounded small. Then, through the flashing lights, another car pulled up. I saw Leo's shape before I believed it, his grey jacket, his calm walk toward the scene. The police asked who he was. He said he was my husband, that our phone plan sent a crash alert. I felt my stomach twist. I said he shouldn't be here, that he was embarrassing me. The officer raised an eyebrow. Leo just looked at me, eyes steady but tired. He asked if I was hurt. I said no. He asked what happened. I said we were working late. He looked at Gareth, then back at me. I said he was making a scene. The officer told him to stay clear until reports were done. Leo nodded, silent again, and that silence felt heavier than yelling. When I got home hours later, he helped me sit down and brought ice for my shoulder. I said I didn't need it. He said he was relieved I was safe. I told him not to act like he cared suddenly. He said he always had. I said that was news to me. He didn't argue. He just said he'd sleep in the guest room so I could rest. When the house went quiet, I lay awake scrolling through messages. Lydia asked if I was okay. Kira said men overreact to everything. I told them Leo was calm but distant, and Kira said that was the dangerous kind. I texted back, he's probably just thinking. At 3 a.m, I heard typing from the guest room, keys clicking, a printer humming. I assumed he was reading forums about car insurance or something dull. I didn't know those sounds were the start of his plan. I only knew the house suddenly felt colder than the rain outside. By morning the rain had stopped, but the sky still looked bruised. I woke up to the smell of coffee and the sound of Milo humming in the kitchen. Leo had already made breakfast. He said he'd take Milo to school since I looked tired. I told him I wasn't tired, just sore from the seatbelt. He said that was expected after a crash. I said he was being dramatic. He didn't answer. That quiet way of his made me feel small, like I was on trial in my own house. When they left, I checked my phone. There were messages from Gareth, short ones, insurance called, keep story simple. We were working late, nothing else. I typed of course and deleted it before sending, worried Leo might see. I wasn't sure why I was scared. He never went through my phone. Still, I changed my passcode. At work, the parking lot still had dark streaks from the crash. People whispered when I walked in. Lydia rushed over, asking if I was okay. I said it was just a fender bender. She said everyone was talking about it, that HR was asking questions because it was a company car. I smiled and said rumors grow fast. She lowered her voice and said someone mentioned seeing Gareth and me leaving the gala together. I told her to stop listening to gossip. She shrugged but kept watching me. When Gareth arrived, his usual confidence was gone. He said HR wanted statements and that he'd handle it. He told me not to say we were alone. I asked what difference it made. He said policies were strict. I said it wasn't like we did anything. He said that wasn't the point. Then he smiled thinly and said I should trust him. I nodded but felt a cold twist in my stomach. That afternoon, Leo texted to ask how I was feeling. I said fine. He said the insurance called him because the car registration listed my name as emergency contact. I said he shouldn't have answered. It wasn't his business. He said he just wanted to make sure everything was sorted. I told him he could stop pretending to care. He wrote back, okay. That night he didn't join me for dinner. I asked if he was angry. He said no. I asked if he believed what people might be saying. He said he wasn't interested in what people said. I told him that sounded like judgment. He said it wasn't. I accused him of being passive-aggressive. He sighed and went upstairs. I told myself he was guilty of something too. Maybe neglect, maybe pride. And that made us even. The next day my sister called, already furious. She said she'd heard that Leo showed up at the crash scene and acted like a jealous maniac. I said he just came to help. She said everyone thought he embarrassed me. That word, embarrassed, stung. She said I should post something light online to prove we were fine. I did. A picture of coffee, and the caption, "Back to work, nothing stops progress." Within minutes, Lydia liked it. Kira commented hearts, and Gareth texted good move. When I came home that night, Leo was reading on the couch. I asked if he'd seen my post. He said he didn't use social media much. I said maybe he should, to show support. He looked at me quietly and said we didn't need to prove things to strangers. I told him that kind of thinking was why people thought we were distant. He said maybe we were. I said if he didn't like it, he could try harder. He just looked at the page in his book and said he already was. Later, while I was brushing my hair, I noticed a small bruise on my shoulder. I called it a souvenir. When Leo came in to grab something, he saw it and asked if it hurt. I said no. He said I should see a doctor anyway. I said he didn't need to act like he cared about my body now. He said he cared about my well-being. I said those were not the same thing. He said nothing again. That silence was unbearable, so I kept talking until he finally said goodnight and left. On Friday, Diana called and said she'd take Milo overnight so I could rest. I said she didn't have to. She said Leo had already arranged it. I was annoyed. He didn't even ask me. I told her it wasn't necessary. She said it was for the best. I hung up without thanking her. That evening, Gareth called. He said HR was scheduling separate interviews. He told me to stick to the overtime story. I said it sounded rehearsed. He said we just had to protect ourselves. He used that word, ourselves, as if we were a team again. I wanted to believe it. When Leo came home, I told him Diana had overstepped by taking Milo. He said he'd asked her because he thought I needed peace. I said he should stop making decisions for me. He said he was just trying to keep things calm. I said he loved control more than family. He looked at me for a long time and said quietly that maybe control was the only thing left to protect. I didn't understand what he meant. He went to the guest room again. I followed, demanding to know if he thought I was having an affair. He said he wasn't interested in accusing anyone. I said that's not a denial. He said he just wanted honesty. I told him if he trusted me, he wouldn't need proof. He said trust and proof aren't enemies. I said he was twisting words. He said maybe I was. I stormed out before he could add anything else. Around midnight, I heard him moving papers again, slow and careful. I peeked in and saw folders spread on the desk, our joint statements, copies of bills, his work ID, even Milo's school reports. I asked what he was doing. He said he was just getting organized. I said he was making me nervous. He said then, maybe I should rest. His tone was so calm it scared me more than yelling would have. When I closed our bedroom door, my phone buzzed with another message from Gareth. "We'll be fine. Just don't panic." I stared at those words and wondered why he didn't say, "I'm here." I felt suddenly cold again. Outside, the printer stopped, and Leo's footsteps crossed the hallway. He knocked once, said he'd leave early for work. I didn't answer. I lay awake, listening to him pack a bag, zip it quietly, and shut the door. The sound was clean, final. It didn't occur to me then that he wasn't just going to work. He was preparing for something I couldn't yet imagine. The next morning, Leo didn't come home after dropping Milo off. I assumed he'd gone straight to work, but when noon passed and there was still no message, I started to feel restless. I called his office. The receptionist said he'd taken personal leave for the week. That was odd. Leo never took leave. I told myself he probably needed space. I told myself space was healthy. But when I opened the bank app and saw a pending notice on our shared card, access restricted, legal review, my stomach tightened. Kira said I was overreacting. She said men freeze cards all the time to feel powerful. She told me to post something bright to make him look petty. I did. A photo of my lunch with the caption, "Some people starve you of peace. Feed yourself instead." It got dozens of likes within an hour. Lydia texted, "Iconic." I almost believed it was. At the office, whispers grew louder. Gareth avoided my eyes. When I cornered him in the hallway, he said HR had received an anonymous complaint about unprofessional conduct. I asked if he thought it was Leo. He said maybe someone else, maybe Diana. Families meddle. I laughed too loudly. He didn't join in. He said we should act normal and keep communication to email only until things clear up. It sounded rehearsed. When I got home, the mailbox held an envelope addressed jointly to both of us from a law firm I didn't recognize. I texted Leo asking what it was. He replied hours later, "You'll see soon enough." My hands shook. I told Kira, who said he was bluffing, probably trying to scare me into apologizing. She said men always play lawyer when they're weak. I wanted to believe that. That weekend, Diana invited Milo to a sleepover again. I said no, but she had already picked him up. Leo wasn't answering my calls. I left voice notes saying he couldn't just take my son without talking to me. I said I'd call the police. He replied once, "He's safe. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." I tried to distract myself by meeting Lydia for coffee. She asked if I thought Leo might actually file for something. I said he wouldn't dare. I'd ruin his reputation. She looked nervous, said maybe I should calm down before posting anything else. That irritated me. I told her she sounded just like him. She apologized and said people were saying HR had already interviewed Gareth. I pretended not to care. That night, I recorded a story about choosing freedom over fear and tagged a motivational quote page. Kira reshared it. Comments flooded in, women cheering, saying I was brave. I stayed up reading everyone, my chest tightening with pride and panic. I convinced myself I was winning. The next morning, someone knocked on the door. A man in a grey suit stood there holding a stack of papers. He asked for Mrs. Parr. I said that was me. He handed over the envelope and asked me to sign receipt. My hand trembled as I scrawled my name. When I opened it, the top page read, "Petition for dissolution of marriage." My throat went dry. The rest of the pages mentioned temporary custody, financial preservation, and marital estate. Legal words that felt like a foreign language. I called Leo immediately. He answered but didn't speak. I asked if this was a joke. He said it wasn't. I said he was overreacting. He said he wasn't angry, just done. I told him he couldn't make decisions like that without me. He said I'd made plenty without him. Then he hung up. I called Kira, crying. She said to post something before he could twist the story. So I did. Another photo, this time of Milo's empty bedroom with the caption, "Some people choose paperwork over family." Within minutes, messages poured in. Most were supportive, but one comment stood out. Maybe he just got tired of lies. I deleted it. Later that day, I received another email, from HR this time. "You are placed on paid administrative leave pending investigation into potential policy violations." My chest felt tight. I called Gareth. He didn't pick up. When he finally texted, he said HR had suspended him too, and that we shouldn't communicate until legal advisors. Legal advisors. The phrase made me feel disposable. I drove to Diana's house, hoping to see Milo. She opened the door but didn't let me in. She said it was better for him to have quiet tonight. I said he was my child. She said I could see him after things were clear. I asked what that meant. She said Leo had everything organized now. I shouted that she had no right. She closed the door slowly, her face unreadable. Back home, the silence was unbearable. I poured wine, scrolled through my posts, and reread old comments about strength and independence. They felt hollow. I tried to call Gareth again. No answer. His number went straight to voicemail. I left a message saying we needed to coordinate our stories. I almost added that I missed him, but stopped myself. When I looked out the window, Leo's car was parked across the street. He didn't come in. He just sat there for a while, maybe watching the lights in the house. I texted him asking if he wanted to talk. He replied, "Everything will be handled properly. Check your email tomorrow." I typed coward and deleted it before sending. The next morning, another message arrived from a legal address. Preliminary hearing scheduled for temporary orders. My name, his name, the date, Monday. Under it, a line in bold. All parties to present financial disclosures and any relevant evidence. I felt the room spin. I ran to my desk, opened drawers, searched for anything that might look respectable. Receipts, printed emails, schedules. My hands shook so badly I dropped half of them on the floor. Every page seemed to accuse me of something I hadn't admitted to anyone. Kira called, saying I should go nuclear. She said I should claim emotional neglect, control, anything that would make me look like the victim. I said maybe I was the victim. She said then I'd better act like it. That evening, another knock came. This time, a courier with a flash drive and more papers from Leo's lawyer, Ruth Mendel. Inside were transaction records, screenshots, and printed text logs. I skimmed one. Gareth's name, the date of the crash, hotel bookings. The walls seemed to close in. I told myself he couldn't have proof of anything more than coincidence. But deep down, I knew he could. As I sat there with the documents scattered across the table, I noticed a small note attached to one. "Do not destroy or alter evidence." The phrase made my heart race. I looked around the room, at the framed photos of our family on the wall. Everything felt suddenly fragile, as if one gust of wind could knock the whole house down. Then my phone buzzed. A reminder notification, automatically synced from Leo's old calendar. Court, temporary orders, 9:30 a.m. I stared at it until the screen dimmed. The rain started again outside, soft at first, then harder, like it was rehearsing for something worse. By Monday morning, I was shaking so much that I could hardly button my blouse. I wanted to look put together, like someone who didn't deserve what was happening, but my hands kept trembling. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Plain chairs, dull lights, the smell of paper and coffee. Leo sat on the opposite side, his lawyer beside him. He looked calm, freshly shaven, the same neat jacket he wore on holidays. I hated how ordinary he looked, like nothing touched him. Ruth Mendel, his lawyer, stood when the judge entered. I'd expected her to glare at me, but she only smiled politely, as if this was just another workday. When the clerk read out my name, I felt my throat close. The judge said we were here for temporary orders regarding custody and finances. I wanted to speak, but Ruth began listing documents, joint account summaries, email records, vehicle statements, screenshots. It all sounded so cold, like numbers replacing life. She explained that Leo had concerns about asset misuse and child stability. She said there was evidence of funds spent on personal travel, hotel stays, and non-work entertainment. My face burned. I whispered to my lawyer, a tired man named Evan, that those were business expenses. He said we'd respond in time, but Ruth was already showing timestamps that matched Gareth's credit card transactions and company cars logged after hours. When the judge asked if I disputed the spending, I said those charges were work-related. Ruth then read one email aloud, dated the night of the gala, Gareth writing, "Thanks for another late one. Hope the hotel was comfortable." I blurted out that he meant the event hotel, not a private stay. She nodded mildly and handed over the receipts, 2 room keys under our names. The judge's pen moved slowly. I wanted to scream that everyone was taking this out of context. Evan whispered for me to stay calm. Ruth kept going, describing the car accident, the police report, the alcohol test, the insurance call that went unanswered because Gareth instructed me to lie. She said Leo didn't wish to press criminal issues, only to ensure his child's well-being and financial fairness. Her tone was professional, almost kind, which somehow hurt more. When it was my turn to speak, I said Leo had been emotionally distant for years, that I only wanted appreciation. I said he'd frozen accounts to punish me. The judge asked if I had proof of punishment beyond lawful financial restraint. I said no, but that didn't mean it wasn't true. He nodded but didn't look convinced. Ruth then submitted a school note from Milo's teacher about emotional disruption following parental conflict. I felt faint. After the session ended, Ruth handed copies of the evidence to Evan. Leo didn't look at me. I waited for him to glance up, to show anger or guilt, but his face was unreadable. When he left with Ruth, he even held the door for me. That small politeness made me want to cry. Outside, Kira was waiting. She asked how it went. I told her Leo had twisted everything. She said then I should post the truth online, before he poisoned everyone. I said maybe silence was safer now. She called me cowardly. I said she didn't understand. She said maybe Leo was smarter than we thought. That evening, my email filled with formal words, disclosures, exhibits, affidavits. HR had also written, as per policy, administrative leave continues pending final review. The words blurred together. I called Gareth again. Voicemail. Then a message came through. It's over. HR is digging deep. Please don't contact me. My heart dropped. After everything, he was erasing me to save himself. I opened the binder Ruth had left, meaning to look brave. Inside were sections labeled financial, digital, custody. Under financial were screenshots of our shared card, the same hotel listed under my name the day before the crash, plus rideshare charges to Gareth's address weeks earlier. Under digital were message backups, the ones I thought I'd deleted. Park by the loading dock. Don't tell anyone. Your wife's lucky you work late. I felt dizzy, angry, humiliated. I told myself Leo must have hacked me, though deep down I knew I'd synced my own backups. He'd simply used what was already there. I called Evan, demanding to know if this was legal. He said yes, joint data access and subpoenas were standard in Discovery. He told me to avoid deleting anything. He said that could count as evidence tampering. I laughed bitterly. It came out as a sob. Around midnight, I drove to Diana's house. She opened the door, already in her robe, and told me I couldn't take Milo tonight. I said I just wanted to hug him. She said he was asleep and that I should respect the court's temporary plan. I said Leo was poisoning everyone against me. She said no one needed poison when truth did the work. Her voice was calm, almost sad. I hated her for sounding sorry. Back home, I tore through drawers, looking for my passport, just to feel in control. When I found it, I sat on the floor clutching it, not sure what I meant to do. I kept hearing Ruth's calm voice, the click of the judge's pen, Leo saying he's safe. Everything I had twisted to my favor, now, lay flattened under letterheads and signatures. The next day, another message arrived from the court system, confirming that the temporary orders were approved pending final signatures. Attached were bullet points: primary physical custody to Leonard Parr. Undine Parr granted scheduled visitation. Joint assets under freeze until further review. Mandatory co-parenting course within 30 days. No new debts or major purchases allowed. I stared at the screen, my mouth dry. It wasn't just losing Leo, it was losing the version of myself I'd built through excuses. I called Kira again, begging for advice. She said maybe I should go public, make a video about emotional abuse. I almost agreed, then saw another line in the court email. Parties instructed to refrain from disparaging public statements. It felt like Leo had even taken my voice. That evening, HR's final notice arrived. You are on leave pending outcome of internal investigation. I read it twice. Gareth's name appeared in the same memo. Mutual administrative review. That's what they called it. Not affair, not betrayal, not humiliation, just review. When the sun went down, the printer in my house started humming again. I'd forgotten Leo left his documents on the Wi-Fi connection. Another sheet came out automatically, a scanned image of the dashcam report from the tow yard. The timestamp matched the crash, showing two silhouettes in the car, faces barely visible, but close enough to know. I dropped the page onto the floor. My chest hurt from how quietly everything was ending. The world wasn't exploding, it was dissolving, piece by piece, under signatures and silence. The hearing for the final orders felt like standing inside a dream I couldn't control. The clerk called our names, and I followed Leo into the same dull courtroom where everything had begun. He didn't look at me. Ruth handed the judge a short folder. Compliance confirmed, all exhibits verified. My own lawyer whispered that fighting now would only make things worse. I nodded, numb. The judge read from the ruling. Leo would have primary custody. I'd get weekends on rotation. Each word fell like a slow hammer. Financial accounts split, spending limits set, co-parenting app required, both parties barred from online commentary. I wanted to protest, to say this wasn't justice, but no sound came. Ruth asked the judge to note Leo's cooperation with HR's ongoing inquiry. The judge said, "Noted." It was done. Outside, the hallway smelled like old paper and rain. May and Kira stood apart, May quiet, Kira glaring. Diana held Milo's small backpack, her hand steady on the strap. Leo thanked his lawyer, then crouched to zip Milo's coat. I stepped forward, whispering his name, asking if we could talk. He said there was nothing left to discuss, only schedules to follow. In the parking lot, I reached for his sleeve. He stepped back gently, opened the car door, and helped Milo buckle in. I told him this wasn't fair. He said fairness wasn't the goal. Clarity was. The door shut. The car pulled away, taillights glowing through thin drizzle. I stood there, holding the envelope with the judge's seal, paper warm from my hands. The rain started again, steady and cold. For the first time, I realized no one was coming to fix the story. It was finished, written in ink, not sympathy. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.